Good afternoon and welcome to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on this gorgeous Saturday afternoon here at Gulfstream Park. Gulfstream today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney, here to look at the 13 races on tap. Acacia, we've got a lot to get to, but of course we'll start off today. You can kind of see a little line of people behind my shoulder. It's jockey poster signing day.
It is. They have one of those great jockey posters that they do every year here with our world-class jockeys at Gulfstream Park. So a line forming in the walking ring. It starts around 10:45. You can come and get your free poster and get it signed as well. And then there's also going to be today those stainless steel jockey tumblers with a $10 donation to the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund. So lots of good stuff going on today and some nice collectibles to get too.
Absolutely, and that line is continuing to grow too, so get out here for, as the jockey should be sitting in the chairs right behind my other shoulder pretty shortly. Wanted to remind everybody as well, taking a look towards next week, we will be dark in terms of live racing for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday because it is the Fasig-Tipton Sales Week. Monday morning at 10 a.m. will be the Breeze Show. Wednesday evening at 4 p.m. will be the actual sale itself. So you can come out here. Public can come and watch the Breeze Show. They can come to the sale as well. It's going to be an exciting couple of days.
It really will, and we've been seeing those commercials, the excitement building. Obviously, I've seen some really spectacular horses come out of there, including Florida Derby and Kentucky Derby winner Nyquist. So should be a lot of fun. Don't forget, it is open here at Gulfstream, though we will resume racing on Thursday.
We're ramping up for a big Fountain of Youth weekend. We've got a lot of stakes races, graded stakes races, looking forward to next Saturday. But before we get to that, we'll backtrack a little bit to yesterday afternoon. And I told you I had a really good intuition that maybe you would turn things around in terms of Beat the Expert Day. You had 3 or 4?
I had 3 winners yesterday and a couple of seconds too, but those don't count on Beat the Expert Day. But I had 3, which is better than 1, which is what each of us has been doing in the past couple of weeks. But we do have 3 winners. We do have a couple people that did beat me. Now, Julio Rodriguez had the most wins ever in this Beat the Expert contest with 6. So my hat is off to Julio Rodriguez. We also had John McGinnis and Frank DiMarzio. You 3 will be receiving your Beat the Expert polos, plus getting, of course, being able to say that you beat the expert.
You go, Julio.
Yeah, that's great.
That's really impressive. 6 winners. I had some brutal defeats, so a lot of seconds yesterday. But, well, congratulations to all of those winners and looking forward to next Friday as well. We'll now take a look at today's program and wanted to show you some of our featured wagers today. We do have some guarantees, but we start things off in today's opener. Race 1 kicks off that Rolling Super High Five. The Rolling Super High Five is a $1 bet, and it takes place in races of 7 or more horses. Race 1 also does kick off that 50-cent early pick 5. Acacia will have a ticket for that. Moving along to race 6. Race 6 kicks off that 50-cent middle pick 4, a very popular wager, and it's kind of just in the middle of this 13 race program, so don't forget it. Sometimes it's easy to kind of overlook, but it's a really great bet there. So 50-cent based wager. Now looking at our guaranteed pools today, again, we will be guaranteeing that $200,000 pool in the 20-cent Rainbow 6. In the late pick 5, that's going to be $250,000, and in the late pick 4, we're looking at $350,000. So I'll have a ticket for the pick 6 and the pick 4. Acacia will have another ticket for the late pick 5. We've got tickets galore. We've got races galore. It is fast and firm. Beautiful afternoon, and it took a while to get through this card, didn't it?
It did. The 13 races is not an easy task, but should be a really great day in here. And on that note, a great day all in all. Just noticing some jockeys starting to filter in the walking ring, so don't forget about that as we start things off today.
Let's start it off, and as always, let's take a look at your early pick 5 ticket. Let's start things off on a good note.
Let's try anyway. We'll give you a look at my early pick 5 ticket. I'm going to go with $48 in here, 3 deep to kick things off, 2 by 2 by 2. 4 in the last leg. I thought that there were a couple races that were a bit wide open, primarily that 5th race, a really nice maiden race with several first-time starters that might be ready to fire at first asking. So spreading in there, and then I was a little bit nervous about just using 2 in the 4th race, but trying to keep things affordable, that's what we'll do today.
All right, looking good. $48, a nice affordable early pick 5, and we do start it off with this maiden $50,000 race, a mile onto the turf course. And I know you used 3 horses in the first leg of the pick 5, but who'd you like best?
I opted for the number 8 Final Flurry on top, and I think that there are the 3 horses that I used are perhaps the 3 most possible to win in here, but I did go with Final Flurry, who stays at this level. Last time out was her first start for trainer Bill Mott as well, and last time she just had really no room in the stretch and had to go really wide, and I thought it was actually a very good second considering that she did have kind of a sneaky troubled trip in there, and she did have to steady ever so slightly. But I also thought that Hottie Toddy, who was moving into the Ralph Nix barn, was just really much the best that day too. So to be that kind of second, Jose Lezcano stays in the saddle, and that was her first time on the turf as well, so she gets the nod today.
Yeah, we're looking at the lake as well, who comes out of the race 2 starts back as 2. We have the 8 Final Flurry in there, but I did think Final Flurry had a bit more of an excuse. Now, this filly, she actually broke from post 10 that day, and somehow Jose Lezcano found a pocket to kind of save ground going into the first turn, but as you said, had some trouble prior to the stretch run. And looking at her physically too, it was funny because I looked at her in the paddock and she just looked okay. She was a really, really small, petite filly, but once she got to the track, she was much more spirited and she was ready to go. So I think we could see a better performance from her. But talking about some others who exit the same race, the 5 looking at the lake, she's run 2 really solid performances in her last 2 starts, but the beaten favorite with kind of little excuse last time.
I thought so too, and that's why I pushed her for a little bit further down, because she did show some early interest. She was a bit wide and then closing, but she was the beaten favorite. It did look like off of her race 2 starts back, she should be coming with a big performance last time, and that was at 1 1/16, so she'll cut back slightly to the mile. But talking about consistency and beaten favorites, the number 9 in here, Aquemini, certainly knows about being the beaten favorite because she was that in her last 3 starts, though she did have some excuses early on in her career, some bumping at the gate, some trouble in the stretch. She now takes an even bigger drop in class to the maiden 50 level and gets Jose Ortiz in the saddle.
And the blinkers have gone on to help her break and help her focus in the afternoon. She's had those blinkers on in the past 2 starts, but last time out, she just looked like she would not pass Lady Nikki, who was the eventual winner of the race. So I do respect her because of her consistency. Look, she hasn't finished off the board in 5 career starts, but those defeats are starting to rack up. That's today's opener as we get to the second race on the card as 6250 conditional claimer. We go to the 1-turn mile onto the main track, and we do have a couple horses who figure to take money. Acacia, you did land on the 4 Little Caton, and she can be a little bit of a tough customer in the afternoon.
Yes, she can be, and it's not going to be a horse that I would single by any means in here, but I thought that she might be the one in this spot because she's got quite a bit of early speed. Now, Luca Panicci's riding style, I think that he rides really well, even from a stalking or coming off of the pace performance, but we've seen him kind of surprise sometimes going to the front end with a horse that's perhaps more comfortable there, and that is where I think this filly is more comfortable. And I think that she has a shot of perhaps even being the lone speed or just getting into a good spot early and kind of having the rest of the race play out behind her. So that's why I gave her the nod today, but this was a tough race, I thought, to kind of narrow in on.
It really is, and I liked the 7 Leanne and Susan. She does come out of a subpar performance, dropping to the bottom last out. This could be similar to the David Fox horse that I picked yesterday, who just showed speed and stopped. I think probably ran another 0 buyer speed figure. But Dale Romans will show you a stat here over the past 2 years. Second start off of the layoff, going a distance of ground on the dirt. He's 21% out of 19 horses, a positive ROI, and 53% in the money. And plus, this mare, she didn't get off to a great start. She actually kind of broke and then pinballed out of the gate between 2 horses, and then she was pretty much widest of all the entirety of the race. That was going the 1-turn mile. So I'm hoping with a cleaner break, now second off the layoff, good stat horse, and she's 6-1 on the morning line.
You'll definitely get a better price on her. The number 1 to the inside is taking a big class drop, Diplomatic Affair for Jorge Navarro. Luis Saez in the saddle. Obviously, all things that you would like to see Hottie. But first, after the trainer switch last time out, showed absolutely nothing against 16 non-winners and 3, in fact, beaten 30 lengths. So I kind of proceeded with caution with this one.
That's a tough race to get through in terms of the early pick 5. So best of luck getting through that race as we get to the 3rd on the card. A mile and a 16th on the turf for this maiden $25,000 event. And we actually land on the same horse here towards the inside, the 2 Quasi Storm for Tom Bush.
And this is obviously, on paper, perhaps a harder horse to like. I remember really liking her last time out, dropping from special weight to claiming for the first time. She showed a little bit of speed early last time out, but she was kind of sandwiched in between horses for the whole first part of the race. And I don't think that she was incredibly comfortable in there. It was also a pretty tough competition. It's actually a race that we were just talking about earlier with Hottie Toddy being the winner. And we'll see Final Flurry and looking at the lake a little bit earlier on in the card. So maybe a little bit something to keep an eye on. But this filly has been working very well since. She takes an even bigger class drop going to the 25 level today. And I do think that she had shown some promise in her first 2 starts. So I'll give her one more try this afternoon.
There are 2 things that I guess 2 points I want to make about the 2 in here. And one of them was last time out, she was part of, she was closer to the pace that seemed to collapse because we did see Hottie Toddy. I think she came from a little bit off the pace. Now she's getting another drop in class. I think it'll help her. But my worry with her is, will she once again be kind of chasing the pace? Will she get caught up in that pace scenario? Because we do have some other horses that have speed types, like the 6, Anthony Lass, Little Queen just to her outside. Those are pretty quick horses. So I think tactically I'm concerned, but I do think that she can improve out of that performance, as the big picture scenario in that last race, it didn't really set up for her running style.
No, it didn't. And I do think that she has a couple of excuses in there. I had some interest in a couple other horses, though. The horse that probably will take quite a bit of money is the 8 Pebble Road for Eddie Keneally, who dropped to this level last time out and did have a troubled break. She hit the gate and had a really rough start, and then just not really much room to run. And we've seen Eddie Keneally kind of taking a more aggressive approach in class drop, so going from a special weight to the 25 level last time. Now she stays at this level. And then I threw on Bahama Kitten as well, who actually I think is coming out of a very tough race last time out. But this is a pretty good field for the 25 level.
And Clyde's Queen actually came back to run a decent race against much tougher company and much winners for the first time, but much tougher company than a maiden claiming. So I think you can have confidence maybe with using the 2 in here and also backing yourself up with the 8 Pebble Road, because the race does set up for her and she did have excuse. I think she's probably the horse to definitely beat on paper there in the 3rd race. As we get to the 4th, this is a maiden 12,500 event. We're going the 1-turn mile onto the main track, scratch the 3 Gazprom in here. And I was looking. I don't know if I've found yet, but the 4 I Majestic is a horse that does figure to show speed.
And that's kind of why I landed on him. This is not exactly the easiest race, I think, and that's why I mentioned earlier I'm kind of nervous about just using the 4 and the 6 in the late pick 5, because sometimes with these races you just never know what's going to happen. But I Majestic does have speed. He's dropping to the lowest that he's ever run before. My biggest concern is whether he can sustain his speed, because in the past he has not been able to. But I don't know if there's really going to be anybody to go with him. He's now going back to the dirt too, which is also a bit of a question mark here, because his only dirt start was sprinting in his debut, and it was a sloppy track, and he didn't show any speed that day. Perhaps didn't like the off track, but has shown speed on the turf. So there's a lot of questions here, but as you said, you're kind of searching, and sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and pick one.
And yes, he will have speed, and physically it does look like distance is better for him than the 6 furlongs where he debuted at, and plus we don't know what he's going to do on a fast main track. And he's got a little bit of form to work off of. Look, I'm going to a horse that is a big question mark, at least in terms of the exacta. I wanted to show a stat here for the 2 Island Lake for Jessica Campitelli. She doesn't do this oftentimes, but turf to dirt with her maiden claimer, she's 19% out of 16 horses, positive ROI $3.61, finishing in the money 44% of the time. And I kind of like this horse because he's not really bred for turf. I think from a pedigree perspective, perspective, he should be able to handle himself on the main track. And I also think that he will improve with added distance. But the rider trying to kind of find his first winner at the meet, so that was the concern why I went to the 6-man elite towards the outside. Now first for Oscar Gonzalez, who you really grasping at straws. I'm just going for the big class relief here.
That's exactly what I saw in this horse too. And there actually are some works on the tab at Palmettos that do hint at some ability as well. And obviously hasn't run a step in his two starts against state-bred maiden special weight, but maybe going to the bottom is just what the doctor ordered.
We could see. Those are always tough races there in the pick 5 or any of those multi-race sequences. But a much better maiden race here is the 5th race, a maiden special weight. We're going 5.5 furlongs on the main track, and we've got some really nice pedigrees in here, a couple of really interesting first-time starters as well, and one of them is your top selection, the number 6 Chesapeake City.
I kind of looked at this field and looked up pedigree and then started looking at stats for each of the trainers, and obviously first-time starters for Joe Sharp is not one of his strongest moves. First-time starters on the dirt in maiden special weight, he is just 4 for 46, so as I said, not one of his strongest moves, but this horse, he is by Bodemeister. He's out of a multiple stakes placed mare, a mine shaft mare, and there's some ability certainly in the work tab. And what really intrigued me is that you did have a sibling of this horse that won first time out that was also trained by Joe Sharp. So I think there's some precocity there. And out of looking at the rest of the field, I like to see Paco Lopez in the saddle. So taking a little bit of a shot with this one because I do think the bloodlines will help this one. And on the work tab as well, looking like he's going to be ready to fire.
Yeah, I should have used him a little bit here, just given his work tab and the pedigree there. He's got some really nice gate workouts. I think that's always important, especially when you start off at 5.5 furlongs. You want to get off to a good start. And he draws kind of an outside post position, all thanks to like I just went to the 7 Coppertown, and I know this is probably a cop-out pick here, but this horse has a very nice pedigree. He's by Spitestown. He's out of a Go Zapper mare. The mare was a stakes winner. She actually went a distance of ground on the turf. She was best on the turf and synthetic. She made upwards of 140,000. Windstar, Javier Castellano, Todd Pletcher, outside post. I'm not trying to get too creative in here, but for all those reasons, I guess this is another reason why I use this horse in the mix.
It is, and that is, if you remember, I went 4 deep in here because I do think you have to include Coppertown just based on all of the things that you said. Did have some interest in the 4 Blue Buff, first-time starters on the dirt. It made in special weight. Actually is a sneaky good move for Joe Orsino. Another nicely bred one by Unbridled Songs, and did have a couple of siblings that won at first asking as well.
And that's a flashy work tab, I will say, at Palmettos. Oftentimes we don't see Joe Orsino, especially his first-time starters, they're not ones to have a really flashy work tab, but maybe expect this horse to show some speed from the gate. He's got some really quick workouts, especially in the last couple, some quick 3 furlong workouts, so you would imagine that he should show some speed. The 1 Fooch to the inside, a first-time starter for Wesley Ward. A little stat I didn't want to show because he is 4-1 and he's probably going to be an alternative to some of the favorites, but Wesley Ward with his sprinters on the dirt, first time out at Gulfstream and maiden special weight company, only 4 for 38, 11% and a negative ROI. So that's why I was kind of curious about this horse. I did go back and watch the workout at the OBS sale, and it was a fast work. It was 10 flat, and I think the bullet was 9 and 4. So a very fast workout. It looked like he did it pretty easily, and maybe another one to use, but he's going to have to show some speed from the gate.
He will, and being at the rail post position as a first-time starter going 5.5 furlongs is always a bit of a tough asking, but obviously having Jose Ortiz in the saddle is never a bad thing.
That's a tough race. I'm really looking forward to seeing those horses in the paddock as we get to the 6th. To start off our stakes action, the Texas Glitter, we go to the turf at 5 furlongs, and a key scratch of the 1 Santini. We did have a spotlight replay of there, so now I would imagine that the 2 Squadron will take even more money.
I think so too, and I was pretty bummed because I really liked Santini in this spot. I thought that this was a horse who did have to deal with the rail and was going to try and have to work out a trip, but there is a lot of speed, at least on paper, in this 5 furlong turf race. So I did default into the 3 Uncle B, who definitely has some class to him. He did actually win win in restricted stakes company in the OBS Sprint last time out, earning an 81 Beyer speed figure. And this is actually his first time on the turf, so of course that is a little bit of a question mark, but he's nicely bred. Actually, the dam was off the board in her only turf start, but as we said, he's had success on the synthetic, and he's a multiple stakes winner and multiple graded stakes place horse, Room for Me, who was 0 for 3 on the turf, but his best Beyer speed figure was a 73, so did show a little bit of an affinity for the grass. A little bit of a question with Nick Gonzalez.
And yes, it's a big question, but this horse clearly has some talent, and maybe he is just a little bit better on the synthetic. Last time out, though, at the OBS Sprint race, he actually broke a track record in there, 108 and change. So a very sharp race. That was a decent field. He won by open lengths. He probably could take to the turf. I remember looking at this horse physically in the Buffalo Man and thinking, I'm not so sure he's going to like the dirt. He just didn't look like it. So I think the turf could be a more preferred surface. I like him. I think he's a horse that continues to improve. And you have a horse like the 2 Squadron who came off of a layoff last time out. And I remember him too. He was just really on his toes, really high energy, almost too much. And it looked like he expended all of his energy in the first half of the race and had nothing left to kind of set it up for Made You Look. And we'll show a stat here for trainer Todd Pletcher. With his turf sprinters coming in non-graded stakes, only 5 for 41, 12%, and a negative ROI. He did sprint last time out technically at 7.5 furlongs. Maybe this will help him, or maybe he's a horse that can kind of contain his speed a little bit better going 2 turns.
And that might just be what he has to do. He did stalk from off of it 2 starts back at Gulfstream Park West, which was actually his first start on the turf. And I remember watching him in his debut race when he won at the 6 furlongs. Then they switched him to the turf, and I was just kind of looking at him and always kind of wondering if he really would like 2 turns on the turf. So I respect him on the cutback in distance here, but that's a good stat to show. I thought he was really worked up last time out. I agree with you, and I think maybe he just even showed so much speed because he was just kind of all over the place and not mentally had his head in the game. So maybe he'll take a step forward here today. Javier Castellano is in the saddle. A horse that I had some interest in that might be a bit of a price is the number 9 White Smoke to the outside, who was really impressive last time out, winning in what was not an easy field, a maiden special weight going 5 furlongs on the turf. And 2 starts back, he had been dueling with Northern, really fast fractions on the dirt on the front end, showed the ability to come from off of the pace last time out, and we keep saying it that Louis Duco and Jorge Ruiz have just been really lighting up the tote board together, so maybe one to throw in at a price.
It's beyond kind of the 2 go-figure horses with the 2 Squadron and Uncle B. It is all over the place. And one of the horses could be the 6 Derek Smile, who clearly did like the turf. 2 starts back beating Bronson, excuse me. Big hiccup there in the grade 2 swale, so you have to consider what that might have taken out of him as he was eased and walked off in that race. And even the 7 Jersey Street, he did not get off to a good start in his lone turf as 2 starts back. He kind of looked physically like he would like the turf, so maybe it was just a bit of a hiccup, and he came back with a big performance, of course, one-liner, the winner coming back to get a 102 Beyer speed figure in the Southwest.
And obviously he will maybe be respected or maybe take a little of attention behind finishing behind one-liner, but his only turf start, it was kind of weird. He came out of the break and he either took a bad step or just kind of planted himself, and then he was trying to rear and almost crow hopping a little bit. Louis Sai is kind of just really being forced to get off of him. So it looked like he had maybe a little bit of a meltdown. So we'll see how he does today.
He did something, maybe like crossed his legs or something coming out of the gate. You're right. It just looked like a really uncomfortable situation coming out of the gate. But you have to respect the fact that they're trying to give turf another try here, and even against Stakes Company. As we get to the 7th race on today's card, this is a maiden special weight going 5 furlongs on the turf. I thought this was a pretty competitive race, but we both land, and I think Ron Nicoletti too lands on the number 7 Spelker.
Well, what I like about Spelker is that she showed some some versatility last time out. She'd just been kind of a typical young Wesley Ward horse, going to the front end, showing that speed, and she showed the ability to rate last time out, which I did like. And she had a really good performance. Morticia was an upset winner in there, came at a big price, and I believe we'll actually see Morticia in stakes company. And she was beaten just a length in there, so I thought it was a good performance, even though she was the beaten favorite.
And it was a very good race, because if you go back and kind of watch that replay, she was down on the inside, she was on the rail, then she had to angle out, and then she closed. So she made a lot of different moves for it only being a 5-furlong turf sprint off of a layoff. So I do think that she could really build upon that. But we wanted to go to the 5 Iconetta here, a second-time starter for trainer Todd Pletcher. But go back and take a look at her last performance.
And we're going to go all the way back to the summer at Saratoga, because this was where she debuted. And I think it was a really nice performance. She was the number 5. She showed a little bit of early interest, and there were kind of a lot going towards the wire, and she was passed on the outside, but she was beaten just a neck in her debut race in July at Saratoga, which is always, I think, a reason to kind of respect a horse, that a horse will probably take some money as well. She kind of re-rallied when she had a horse closing on her outside, and now, of course, we haven't seen her since July. She's coming off of about a 7-month layoff, but of course, beautifully bred for Todd Pletcher, and Todd does do a great job first off the bench.
He does, and Javier Castellano in the saddle. This horse will figure to take some money. Took a little bit of money in debut, but the only bad thing about that race, Acacia, I know that she did finish second in a maiden special weight at Saratoga. That's something you always have to respect, but the race didn't really produce anything. From my research, I think it produced one maiden special weight winner in their next start, and that was on the dirt. So I don't think it was a very strong race, not to say that this is an extremely strong race and she could improve off of that performance, but you always want to play devil's advocate with Todd Pletcher horses who figure to take a lot of money. The 3 Farcical Feline was one I had some interest in, now stepping up to the maiden special weight level here for Alan Goldberg, but I like the fact that she's got a mile race under her belt. She's cutting back in distance today, and overall that was a very strange race last time out. She moved early, and then she was never given a breather. It looked like it was a very awkward ride, to be honest, and then she kind of faded from there. So I think with a more fluid trip, now Paco Lopez in the saddle, we could see a better performance from her.
She definitely could take a step forward. I had some interest in the 8 Sulfide, who I do kind of wonder what her preferred running style is. Maybe just on the stretch out to 2 turns. Last time she showed a lot more speed, but 2 starts back. In her debut, she actually finished a solid second for Jane Sibeli behind Delphinia, who did go on to win stakes in stakes competition on the synthetic next time out with an 87 Beyer speed figure. So maybe she's just been keeping some good company.
All right, well, that is races 1 through 7. The pick 6 starts in race 8 today. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll handicap all of those featured wagers here, some of those guaranteed pools, and the latter half of the card right after this.
Nyquist swiped over the wire. Nyquist has won. He's a champion.
Greatster's the leader by 1. Here's the finish. Greatster, wire to wire.
And Sir Dudley Diggs from Amise Gizmo. Sir Dudley Diggs has won the Queen's Plate.
Saturday, March 4th, the road to the Triple Crown continues at Gulfstream Park. Don't miss the country's top 3-year-olds compete in the Grade 2 ExpressBet.com Fountain of Youth Stakes as they continue their journey to Derby glory. 9 total stakes races, $1.5 million on the line. A thrilling day of live racing. The Grade 2 Fountain of Youth Stakes. Derby contenders start here. Welcome to your playground, Gulfstream Park.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Gabby Gaudette joined by Acacia Courtney. And before we get to those featured wagers today, including the pick 6, we'll take a look behind me. Today's jockey poster signing day. Have you seen the posters? They're actually really nice.
They're really cool. You've got a poster with all of our jockeys, of course, world-class jockeys here at Gulfstream Park. They're all dressed up, looking really spiffy in their tuxedos. And, of course, in the center, in one of his signature hats, our Clerk of Scales, Victor Sanchez, who keeps everybody in line.
He keeps everybody in line. He has for years and years and years, and he's a very sharp dresser, too.
Yes, he is. I really do envy his fashion sense. But get on over there. You can see lots of people getting their autographed poster. So a poster is free. You don't want to miss out on that. It's a nice thing to have. They do some good ones each year.
It is. This might be my favorite one in the past couple of years. So come on out, get your poster, get it signed by some of our world famous jockeys here at Gulfstream Park. As we get back to today's card, the 20-cent Rainbow Six once again kicks off in race 8, and we have a $200,000 guaranteed pool for the sequence. I did keep my ticket though on the affordable side, $57.60, and going to be singling on Mind Your Biscuits and in our featured race today, the Gulfstream Park Sprint later today. But using 4 horses to start it off, the 1, 7, 9, 10 with the 111 using 4 horses in race 10. I thought that was a race you wanted some coverage in. And race 11 just using 3 horses, capping it off with 3 horses with the 2, 3, 5, excuse me. I feel confidently about the single and the last race of the sequence. I don't know about any other leg of the sequence.
I'm in the same boat.
It's going to be tough. We'll get to your pick 5 in a second, but we do start it off here with this open 6250 claiming event, 7 furlongs on the main track, and I probably could have even used 5, 6 horses in here to start things off because you never know what this level of competition will do. You like the 4 Jaden's Best.
I did, and I can't blame you for going to the 9 Vegas Strip. I actually circled that horse and then crossed him up and ended up putting him 5th, and I did land on Jaden's Best for Jorge Navarro, who has shown some speed. Last time out, had to be very wide and still managed to close from off of it and be 3rd, beaten just by a length that day. I do think he's sticking with the 7 furlongs here. Hope that he can move forward now 3rd off of the claim in here for Jorge Navarro. So thinking that this one might be able to take a step forward and maybe show a bit more speed.
Jorge Navarro always dangerous with these low-level dirt claimers. He just hasn't been able to break through this open 6250 condition since last September, so it's been a couple of starts, but he definitely does fit 9-2 on the morning line as with the 9 Vegas Strip for Reed Baker. I'm not saying anything that isn't already on form. This horse is dropping in class, and he's a winner at the distance.
I can't blame you at all for that. As he said, definitely something to be intrigued by, and of course, having a leading rider, Luis Saez in the saddle is a good thing. A horse that's pretty consistent, but consistently in the money to the rail is the 1 General Shama. Now, first off, the claim for Gilberto Zerpa, which is always dangerous, but it looks like no matter who this horse is with, he always ends up finishing 2nd.
He does. Maybe I should swap him for the 4 Jaden's Best for the first leg of the Rainbow Six. That is a very, very tough field to kick things off, so hopefully one of my 4 horses does decide to win that race. We'll get to the 9th race, a $250,000 guaranteed pool in the 50-cent late pick 5. We go to the turf at a mile. Acacia, did you single?
I did, and shockingly, I have the same single as you. I don't know what single Ron Nicoletti is going to come up with today. It's always, I think, a surprise to all of us, but I'm singling Mind Your Biscuits as well. Using 3 deep in here to kick things off at this open 16 level, I agree. I think you want some coverage in the 10th race, a very competitive allowance race on the turf. So using 4 in there, 3 Mind Your Biscuits, and then 3 in the finale for $54.
This is an open $16,000 claiming event, a mile onto the turf, and the 1 Perfect Tay second start for Fernando Abreu. Comes off a pretty good trip last time out, a 2nd place performance at a little bit of a short price, but I think today this horse takes advantage of his great post position going the mile.
I think it's perfect for him here. He was going a mile and a 16th last time out. It was really game, just beating a neck at the wire, and I thought that he really fought hard in there. And so Joel Rosario in the saddle here, also 2nd off the layoff and 2nd here with the barn at Gulfstream. So I think there's a lot to like about Perfect Tay in this spot.
And now on the other side of the spectrum, not so great of a post, the number 11 Sinatra. It's been a while since this horse has found the winner's circle, actually September of 2015 at Belmont. So sometimes it's hard to have a lot of faith in horses like this, but Jorge Navarro can improve this horse or at least get to the form that he used to show, and I thought that he was just defeated by a horse that was much the best in the field by Not Today.
Not Today was in excellent form at that time. 3, I think, very impressive races in a row, if not wins. But I thought that, yes, he was just 2nd best that day. It was also first off the claim, moving from Belmont to Jorge Navarro. So we'll see if he can step forward. He actually did run an identical Beyer speed figure off of the claim. So it looked like he kind of did just make a lateral move. So he does have to step forward and deal with the outside post, but I do respect him.
And the 5, Very, Very Stella, does get blinkers on today. Do take note of that. The 4, Chamois. The reason why I threw this horse out was I was very concerned by the fact that he didn't show any speed, and he looks like he's just lost a step or two.
That was literally what I wrote. I said, where did the speed go? Because this horse used to show a lot of speed, but he does have the blinkers on today. Paco Lopez going to be in the saddle and a class drop, so maybe he'll recapture some of that.
Looking at race 10 on the card, $350,000 guarantee pool in the late pick 4. I expect it to go well over that. We've got some great races in the sequence, but I did come up with a ticket, an affordable ticket, and I think if you want to make money off of your pick 4 ticket, you're going to have to spread in this first leg. Race 10 is a wide open race, and you're going to have to try to beat Mind Your Biscuits in our featured race today. So I am backing myself up with another in there. Undefeated, actually, at Gulfstream Park is Kathleen O'Connell's horse.
Early entry.
Early entry. So going to be backing myself up with him. If the favorite does lose in there, this is going to be a very valuable ticket. $45 spreading in the first leg using 3 by 2 by 3. We'll get to the 10th race. Once again, $350,000 guarantee in that pick 4. A mile and a 16th on the turf. 2 other than allowance optional claimer. We could talk about this race for probably a half hour, but we'll start towards the outside with the number 12, Highland Sky, who we haven't seen since tackling Grade 1 Company as a 3-year-old.
This is a really big question mark, but I agree with you. I think, especially if you're playing that late pick 4, this is a place where you might be able to find some value. I definitely expect the 5, Ice Cutter, to take quite a bit of money after finishing second to Bala Rocks last time out. But I landed on Highland Sky, who's coming off the layoff, and 180-plus days on the turf. Barclay Tag is just 1 for 10 with a win column, but it is a positive ROI, so probably a bit of a price. But what really intrigued me about this horse is that he's got some back class, definitely, as you said, trying Grade 1 Company, finishing just a neck before that layoff. And the work tab is really sharp, very flashy, looking like this horse is coming in. And it was interesting to see that Paco Lopez did opt for this horse versus some of the others in this field that he has ridden previously.
And Barclay Tag with a nice winner on yesterday's card. I know that was on the dirt, but the filly was coming out of kind of a subpar performance last time out and came back in an impressive victory yesterday. Now, Highland Sky, the one thing about him, and I'm glad that Paco Lopez is aboard because he is a very aggressive rider and a very brave rider, and that's exactly what this horse needs with his closing from off the pace type of running style. Looking at his replays, it looks like he needs a very, very strong rider coming down the stretch because he just takes a little bit of time to get him going. He continued to improve as a 3-year-old. I think he's going to continue to improve as a 4-year-old, but this is technically his first time facing older company, so that's always a concern. And he likes to be in the clear, and unfortunately sometimes time just runs out on this turf course at Gulfstream Park, but he does have the credentials here to definitely win. I think that some of the more legitimate horses are posted towards the outside, like your top selection. So I went with a horse that's not necessarily the best horse in the race, but he is the most tactical, and that's the 7, Zenner, for trainer Kieran McLaughlin. And I wanted to show a stat here for Kieran McLaughlin with horses making their second start off of a layoff, going a distance of ground on the turf here at Gulfstream. 19% positive ROI, 44% in the money. And like I said, he didn't beat much last time out. And I know Paco Lopez leaves him and goes to the horse that you just mentioned, but he can just find a little bit of a pocket kind of stalking from off of the leaders.
He's very versatile, and that's why I included him as well. Kieran McLaughlin does also have the 4, Munjaz, coming out of the same race as Ice Cutter, and we'll go back and show that race. It also includes the 1 to the rail in Dujak, and as I said, Ice Cutter, who was the 7 that day, was second to Bala Rocks, who came back to win in a very competitive race, getting a 94 Beyer speed figure next time out. And I thought that both Dujak from the rail and Ice Cutter showed some speed. Munjaz kind of pressured the pace that day. You can see him in the Shadwell Silks, and then he kind of faded a little bit. Of course, Bala Rocks on the outside, a horse that's just been in sensational form for Bill Mott, but I thought it was very game from Ice Cutter, and that's why I did respect him. What does concern me is that he's one of few in here. He is in for a tag for the $62,500, and I kind of wonder, is he going to be able to repeat that kind of performance? He did get an identical Beyer speed figure as the winner. They both got a 95. And we'll see what happens with this one in here and if he's going to be able to continue to move forward.
Yeah, if you look at his pattern, he actually has really good performances, and then he kind of flattens in his next start, and then really good performance, and then flattens in his next start. So he did put in an excellent performance, 95 Beyer speed figure, his career best. So you have to wonder if he's going to regress off of that race. Munjaz, I thought, was really rank in that race early. It was hard to settle, and he came back with a subpar performance. I did have some interest with the number 11 horse in here, Strike Midnight, and look, he's another closer. He's really going to have to get the trip, and he is a 4-year-old tackling older company today, making his 4-year-old debut. But the blinkers go on. Jose Ortiz in the saddle, and I think it's a better pace scenario today than last time out. You look at the Tropical Park Derby, Giant Run was the winner. You needed a horse in there that had a little bit of natural speed, that found himself in the first half of the race. Wasn't the case with Strike Midnight. He's also kind of a quirky horse, interested to see how he behaves himself this afternoon, but he does have some talent that he showed in his 3-year-old year.
He does, and it used to be that he would sit a lot closer to the pace, so I wonder if that may be the case today, that he won't be so far back, because he really just was left with a lot to do late last time.
Let's get to 2 more of our stakes races, one of them being race 11, the Melody of Colors. It's 5 furlongs on the turf, and we'll go back to a video spotlight replay that you showed going back to the 21st of December.
This is from the number 7 Adia for Jason Service, and you can see also Richie's sister. Unfortunately, Richie's sister scratched out of the race, so just keep an eye on the 5 in here. It does get bumped a little at the break, and I wanted to highlight this because you see it in the short comments. I don't think it really affected her that much, but she's been in great form. She won her first start against winners, and now you can see her along the rail in here. She kind of stalked, but I thought that the top 2 horses were very game, that being Adia and Richie's sister. So she comes from a little bit off of it, which I do like, that she showed another dimension in here, that she showed some versatility. And it looked like Paco Lopez was really trying to get her going. And then once she did, she was game with the top 2, as I said. And I think it's a good setup for her. Jason Service with winners last time out on turf sprint. He was 31% win, 68% in the money, and a 234 ROI. So I don't think she'd be a single for me today, but she will get my top spot in here.
And it's good that we showed that, because she did win wire to wire in her maiden score back at the Meadowlands. She came back off of a layoff, and she did win, closing from off the pace, at least stalking. It did take a little bit of elbow grease to get her up there, so I wonder if she just is a better horse to go to the lead and not have to pass other horses, and I wonder if she will be able to get in that position. I do respect her. I use her in 3rd here, but I went with a quirky horse, and that's the 4 Consulting. She comes off of a 7-length victory last time out, but that was on the dirt. This is the turf. But her races sprinting on the turf were actually really good, and they were against solid competition. We see Happy Mesa, the winner of the Salima, 2 starts back. We see when she actually finished 2nd against Maiden Special Weight Company back at Laurel on the 5th of August. She beat Dancing Rags. Dancing Rags came out to win the Grade 1 Alcibiades at Keeneland. And we also see Lull in the running lines, who's a stakes winner, ran in the Breeders' Cup. So a lot of things to like, and I'll show you a stat here for trainer Tom Proctor going from dirt to turf with his sprinters. He's 21%, positive ROI, $2.24, finishing in the money 58% of the time. I just like her. I think she's got sneaky back form.
Maybe she does, and she's definitely one to respect in here, and this is a pretty wide open field of this group of fillies in here. And so maybe somebody like that who did just have an explosive win on the dirt might be a little bit overlooked in the wagering and come back with a better price here today.
There's a lot going on in here. I could talk about the 2 Field of Song. I think she can improve for trainer Ian Wilkes. She was spunky on track last time out. I will say that. She looked very professional, but according to Ian Wilkes, he said that she was not responding well to the assistant starter in the gate. It seemed like a lot, or too much for her to handle, and sometimes we see that happen with horses making their United States debut, and she kind of blew the turn going in the first turn too. So she has her head wrapped around things. I would expect a better performance from her. As we take a look at our featured race of the day, the Grade 3 Gulfstream Park Sprint. We're going 6.5 furlongs onto the main track, and we'll start things off with the heavy favorite. And a return to the races, Mind Your Biscuits last out, taking the Grade 1 Malibu.
And we'll show that replay at Santa Anita. And this was, I think, a race that really did set up for him. But he's coming out of a good third in the Breeders' Cup Sprint behind Dreyfong. And then Sharp Azteca really did do all the dirty work. Of course, he was highlighted by the fact that Sharp Azteca came back to win in Graded Stakes Company here at Gulfstream a couple weeks ago. And I think that, again, it set up for Mind Your Biscuits. But the top two horses, I just think, were much the best in that race. And Mind Your Biscuits is a horse that's been in very good form, of course, making his first start for trainer Chad Summers now. Just got his trainer's license, had his first starter yesterday. So this is a horse that's easy to root for as well. And it looks like he's coming in great form.
And Chad Summers has really been pretty hands-on with this horse his entire career, so it's not like a huge trainer switch or anything like that. But Chad Summers actually sending out his first horse yesterday, as you mentioned, I believe getting 4th on yesterday's card. But Mind Your Biscuits, I completely agree. I saw it the same way you did. I thought Sharp Azteca did the majority of the dirty work, kind of battling off foes on the front end and really setting it up for Mind Your Biscuits. But he's a good horse, and I think he's really starting to put it all together, because talking to Chad Summers, he said he is kind of a difficult horse in the afternoon. When you bring him over, you're not always sure what you're going to get. Even in the morning, he can be very finicky. He said he has to play music in his pocket to walk the horse around the shed row. And
He's high maintenance.
He's very high maintenance, but in the Gallant, Bob, I guess he froze in the paddock at Park. So they did paddock school him earlier this week, something to pay attention to, see how his behavior is. But I don't know if you caught him in the paddock, but he looked awesome.
He looked fantastic. I was really impressed with what I saw, and I actually thought that he behaved himself well when he was paddock schooling. But you mentioned if you're trying to make some money and looking for alternatives, early entry came off of an 11-month layoff last time out in the Sunshine Million Sprint, and this horse looked fantastic for Kathleen O'Connell. And I remember looking at him, and I had picked him second or third, and I saw him walking up the horse path, and I was like, I wish I had put this horse on top, because he looked so great, and he proved that with a really good race and winning ahead of Delta Bluesman.
And he's undefeated here at Gulfstream. He loves this track. So if you're trying to beat the favorite in here, maybe go with a little bit of a local flavor in the 4 early entry. But we did want to show another replay of the number 1 Unified, going back to actually the Grade 2 Peter Pan, where he did win. He reeled off 3 victories. Very highly touted from the get-go.
Absolutely, and this was a day he was bet down 55 cents to the dollar, and he's the number 7. And why I wanted to show this race was, A, because it was his last win. He really fired a dud last time out in the Grade 3 Pegasus back in June. But Governor Malibu, who was another highly touted horse, in fact, even a horse that was the pick for some people in the Belmont, was pressuring him to the outside. He was the biggest threat, obviously, and Unified was able to repel that. Jose Ortiz been aboard in his last 4 starts. They'll be reunited here today. And actually, on the 24th, kind of an old school style, Unified did actually work out a little bit. He went a quarter in 23.4, galloped out in 36.60. So it looks like he's coming in very sharp.
An old school approach for sure by Jimmy Jerkins, who definitely knows how to find the winner's circle. And I think this horse has raw talent. But before we move on to the final race, we have to kind of try to predict the pace scenario in here, because Delta Bluesman, I think the only way to do it is to go to the lead. Unified, though, if you look at his previous performances, he's got a lot of gate speed. And with that type of work, my thought is that maybe Jimmy Jerkins and Jose Ortiz are planning to just pop out of the gate and never look back.
And that could definitely be it. It looked like Delta Bluesman definitely is more comfortable on the front end. They tried taking him a little bit off of the pace a couple starts back. That was an experiment that didn't pan out, because he kind of had to go in that race. So I do think that there could be a lot of potential pace, but maybe Unified is just the fastest.
It's a very potent field for the Grade 3 Gulfstream Park Sprint as we get to today's nightcap. We go 1 mile and a 16th on the turf for the 16,000 non-winners of 2 Lifetime. The 2 Cavity off of a second place performance last time out was where you went.
I did. For trainer Jane Sabelli, continues with this lateral move, staying at this 16 non-winners of 2, and just looking kind of at the rest of the field. I do like recalibrating now in the barn of Oscar Gonzalez, hoping to rebound too, but I went with the consistency in here. A good second last time out behind Global Entry for Mike Maker.
I like the post for Cavity. I think he's the horse to beat. I've had an opinion about recalibrating for the past couple of starts, and I like the fact that Javier is aboard for Oscar Gonzalez. He's been very close, just hasn't been able to win yet, but he's 8-1 on the morning line. I used 3 horses in the final leg of the pick 6 there. The top 3 for both of us, hopefully we're right. That is races 1 through 13. We hope you join us here this afternoon at Gulfstream Park. It's a beautiful day. We're going to step aside, and Pete Aiello, well, he's waiting right there. He's going to be up next with those scratches and changes.
We have to take care of these horses that, give us so much joy.
Being accredited